Hello, my name is Declan, and today I will be covering the topic of the healthy body, from nation building to Instagram, with a focus on Max Dupain and the healthy body culture during 1919 to 1939, also known as the interwar period because it was the time period between World War I and II. By the end of World War I, many nations had been brought to their knees and were trying to rebuild themselves. This would lead to changes both in society, shifting towards the healthy body culture movement, and in design style, which was shifting towards modernism, a design style all about efficient and useful design choices. One of the worst things affecting Australia during the interwar period was fatigue. Many people began to exhibit nerves or feel a lack of energy or brain fog. Fatigue had been an issue since the late 19th century, but after World War I, it was far more widespread. It was felt that the health of the populace needed special attention. This special attention led to a re-examination of modern life and the circumstances people lived and worked with, how they exercised, and the foods they ate. The change from plain country food to mass-produced city foods full of stimulants and highly processed was widely agreed to be responsible for many problems. George Philpotts wrote in 1925, "The whiter your bread, the sooner you're dead." During this time, body culturists argued that Australians needed better housing conditions to augment the positive body development being promoted, since most buildings at the time were not a suitable standard. The roots of the healthy body culture can be traced back to the Enlightenment. With genuine flowering in the 19th century, it developed in new directions and addressed a much wider audience in the 1920s to 30s. Modernism is implicated in the development and dissemination of the healthy body culture in just the same way as the healthy body culture informed the development of modernism. John Sorman was one of the most influential Australians to incorporate the principles of the British Garden City movement into his practice as a town planner and teacher. His interests were linked to post-war reconstruction. He considered three elements as essential for the modern city and suburb: fresh air, lack of congestion, and sunlight. The clean and sleek lines of modernist buildings, along with their complement of hygienic gadgets, were a strong symbol for some of how Australia could best enter the machine age. Sydney Ure Smith wrote in 1936, "The time is approaching when intelligent householders in Australia will demand modern houses and interiors from their architects." Many of our architects are like some of our artists. They have set their faces sternly against new ideas. The public will lead the artists and the architects. Progressive people have realized the attractiveness of new ideas, the use of new materials, and the advance in modern lighting equipment. During the 1930s, Ure Smith commissioned a variety of photographers for his magazine The Home, including Max Dupain. In 1938, he employed Dupain to photograph the Hastings Deering building, which housed a car servicing business. Commended because of the difficult sitting of the building on the corner block, his resulting images are striking examples of the modernist style, featuring strong use of light and dramatic upshots of the structure. Now, unfortunately, these photos are either lost to time or in the far reaches of an archive, so I have provided these silo photos that Dupain took during the same time period to give you a sense of the techniques used. Max Dupain was born on the 22nd of April in 1911 at Ashfield in Sydney, and was the only child of Sydney-born parent George Dupain, the physical culture expert. Max started his photography journey in 1924 when he was gifted his first camera and joined the Photographic Society of New South Wales. After completing his tertiary studies, he worked for Cecil Bostock in Sydney, and by 1934 he had opened his own studio in Bond Street. Sydney Ure Smith, who I have previously mentioned, also worked in the Bond Street building. Dupain later reflected on how Ure Smith's altruistic spirit towards all things relating to art helped him to find himself and his direction in photography. During his time at Bond Street, Dupain established a formal approach to photography that embrace certain aspects of European modernism, such as strong contrast between light and shade, and unusual camera angles. As part of a new self-consciousness about social, cultural, and sexual identity, the new man and new woman of the 20s looked different from previous generations, slimmer, fitter, and tanned, particularly after its embrace by the French fashion world, emulating the tan acquired in the 1920s by Coco Chanel. The idea of perfecting and altering the body perhaps found its visual equivalent in the form of the photomontage and the photo manipulation of the darkroom. Dupain's photograph called Sunbaker, this iconic Australian photograph was taken on a sunny day on a white sandy beach in Culbra, New South Wales in 1937. Revered today for its celebration of the sun, vitality, and Australian beach culture, Sunbaker has also been described as a key example of formalist modernism. The clear light, symmetry, low camera angle, sharp focus, and simple geometry were re-examined in the 1980s to situate this photograph as a famed historical example of European modernist photography. A lot has changed since the interwar period, but you can still see the influence of modernism to this day. Take Sorel Amour, for instance. She is described as a well-known photographer, filmmaker, influencer, and businesswoman who inspires her millions of followers around the globe on how to maximize the human experience and live a life of wonder. With the motto, beautifully building better beings, it is not hard to see a connection between her and the modernists of the past. Here are some of her works. You can see how she has evolved the selfie, which itself is a contemporary style of photography, and how she uses new techniques and makes existing techniques new again with different subject matter, all the while bringing this to her large audience, which at the time of recording is 953,000 on YouTube alone, popularizing this new style. Overall, I feel the modernist spirit of improvement, innovation, and pushing the boundaries of good design is still strong in our creatives today, and the modernist legacy will live on through all of them. Thank you for listening.